Hello, this is Yogeshwar 7000 again, and I'm back with my new series. And this new series is about stories from the Puranas. As we know that there are 18 Mahapuranas, and it is important for all of us to get as much as knowledge as possible from the Puranas, the ancient Vedic knowledge from the Puranas. And I thought it's very important, and it is necessary for all of us to get as much as information from the Puranas as possible, especially for the younger generation, because in this day and age, this fast-paced life of ours, we hardly do get any time to go into the ancient scriptures and try to do some research and try to get out some information. So today's story from the Puranas is about creation, how this whole universe was created, how we got created, what is our origin, and where did we all come from. So as per the Puranas, at the beginning of creation, there was nothing in the universe. The universe was not there either. It was only the divine essence which was everywhere. So the divine essence was, neither hot nor cold, neither thick or thin. It had no beginning and no end. There was water everywhere. Now you'll notice if you go to the ancient Christian scriptures or the Islamic scriptures, there could be variations, but we're talking about Hindu scriptures, the Puranas, and this is what has been described, that there was water everywhere. And Lord Vishnu, he manifested himself in this great form and slept on water. While Vishnu was sleeping, a lotus flower came out from his navel. It had many petals, and the stem of the lotus flower shone like 1,000 suns. And from the lotus itself, Lord Brahma was born. And when Brahma was born, he started to wonder that there's nothing around me. Who am I? Where did I come from? What am I supposed to do? And who made me? Whose son am I? So on and so forth. And Lord Brahma thought that he may find answers to all these questions if he explored the lotus where he was present a bit. So what he did was he tried to find the center of that lotus where he was present, and what he did was he descended down the stem of the lotus and wandered around the stem for 100 years. That's what is mentioned in the Puranas, 100 years wandering around the stem of the lotus where he was created, trying to figure out as to where he came from, who's his father, who made him, so on and so forth. He didn't have answers to those questions, but he could not find the flower's center. So he decided to go back and to where he had been born, where he realized himself when he first opened his eyes. And he thought he'd go back to the same place, but in spite of wandering around the stem for another 100 years, he couldn't find that place. So by then he was very tired, and he thought, okay, let me rest a while. And then he heard the words, Brahma, perform meditation. Actually, he heard the words perform tapasya, and tapasya could be translated into meditation, or tapasya could be I think that's the best way to describe tapasya, is meditation. So Brahma meditated for 12 years, and when the 12 years were over, the four-armed Vishnu, Lord Vishnu, appeared before Brahma, and in the four hands Vishnu held a shell, which is a shankha as it's described in Sanskrit, a discus, which is the chakra which he normally holds in his hand, the Sudarshan chakra as it's called famously, the mace, and the padma. And Lord Brahma didn't know who he was, so he asked Lord Vishnu as to who he was. And Lord Vishnu replied, Lord Vishnu has created you, son. So Brahma got a little confused. He says, why do you call me a son? That's what Lord Brahma asked Lord Vishnu. And then Lord Vishnu says, well, don't you recognize me? I'm Lord Vishnu. It is from my body that you have been created. So, but then Lord Brahma was not convinced, and he began a fight with Lord Vishnu. And this is coming directly from the ancient scriptures, from the Puranas. This is not a figment of my imagination or a story created out of fiction. And then, while they were engaged in fighting, a linga, which is a Shiva linga image, a shining Shiva linga, appeared in the scene. And that linga, that shining linga, seemed to have no beginning or the end. So Lord Vishnu said to Lord Brahma, hey, let's stop fighting. There is a third being here now. Now, where did this linga come from? Let's try to find out what this is. So why don't you adopt a form of a swan, which in Sanskrit is called Hansa, and go up, and I will adopt a form of a boar, which in Sanskrit is Varaha, and go down. And let's try to find where this linga, or this shining linga, which is a Shiva linga, ends. So at that time they didn't know it was a Shiva linga. It was like a light, which was a linga, which had no beginning and end. So they agreed, both of them agreed. They were tired of fighting anyways. So Lord Brahma changed into a white swan, and he flew up, and Lord Vishnu became a white boar, and he went down. And they looked for 4,000 years but could not find the end of the linga. So then they returned to where they had started off and began to pray. And they prayed for another 100 years. And when the 100 years were over, the sound of Om was heard. Now here's very important description here. Where did Om come from? So this is where the Om came from. The sound of Om came from. And this is right from the Puranas, so we cannot question that. And a being with 5 faces and 10 arms appeared before them, and this was Mahadeva, or Shiva. As we know that Shiva has five faces and 10 arms, we know that. So that's how Shiva has been described: 5 faces, 10 arms. He appeared before them, and Lord Vishnu said, it's good that Lord Brahma and I have been fighting. It is because of our fight that you arrived. To which Lord Shiva replied, we are all 3 parts of the same entity and have been divided into 3. Lord Brahma is the creator, Lord Vishnu is the preserver, and I am the destroyer. And there's another being called Rudra who will be born from my body. But Rudra and I are one and the same thing. So let Brahma create now. And saying this, Lord Shiva disappeared, and Lord Brahma and Lord Vishnu gave up their forms of a swan and a boar, which they had changed into. And then the creation started. So how the creation started, we're going to deal with this story from the Puranas in our next session. In the meanwhile, I hope you enjoyed this video. And please subscribe to my channel and check out my website. There is a link below, and I will see you with the continuation of this stories from the Puranas, along with my other topics in Jyotish and spirituality. And I'll see you soon. Goodbye.